Hello everyone, I am Dr. Archana Singh, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Botany, Hansraj College, University of Delhi. On behalf of FDP Center Ramanujan College, I welcome you all in a session on role of reactive oxygen species in signaling during mitigation of environmental stresses on plants in the era of global climate change. I have divided this topic in 6 different parts. First part will be on global climate change and its overall impact. Second part is on impact of global climate change on plant growth and crop production. The third part is on how global climate change increases the incidences of environmental stresses. And the fourth part is on role of ROS in signaling during biotic and abiotic stresses. And the fifth part is on antioxidants. And the sixth part, we will focus on how can we reduce the impact of global climate change and design in climate resilient crops. So, we will start with the first subtopic, that is global climate change and its overall impact. Global, global climate change refers to change in Earth's climate over a geological time period. Here, changes in Earth's climate means changes in weather phenomena such as rise in temperature, change in precipitation patterns, change in the pattern of storms, ocean currents, and variation in the atmosphere chemical composition. So, how do we know that climate is actually changing? For this, there are many fingerprint indicators like shrinking thermosphere, less heat escaping to space, rising tropopause, cooling stratosphere, less oxygen in the air, more fossil fuel carbon in the air, 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide released per year, more heat returning to Earth, nights warming faster than days. So these are some of the indicators which tells us that yes, climate change is actually happening. The overall impact of climate change can be easily realized from the fact that during the second half of the 20th century and early part of the 21st century, global average surface temperature increased and sea level rose. Over the same period, the amount of snow covered in the northern hemisphere decreased. In 2013, IPCC reported that the interval between 1880 and 2012 saw an increase in global average surface temperature of approximately zero point 0.9 degrees C. Giving voice to growing conviction of most of the scientific community, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is also called as IPCC in short, was formed in 1988 by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme. Climate scientists have since the mid 20th century gathered detailed observations of various weather phenomena. These data indicate that Earth's climate has changed over time, and the influence of human activities since the beginning of industrial revolution has greatly influenced climate change. There are many important observations that has been noted, and a timeline has been recorded for the same. This timeline is called as the timeline of climate change. So, and it starts almost from 1896, which basically marks that first climate model of the influence of atmospheric carbon dioxide was constructed. Then the second mark was from the year 1920 to 25, which is called as the era in which large scale petroleum development begins with the opening of Texas and Persian Gulf oil fields. 1930s marks the publication that mathematical climatology and the astronomical theory of climate changes occurs and Earth's ice ages. 1957 marks that human beings are now carrying out a large scale geophysical experiment. Then in 1960, a curve, which is also called as a Keeling curve, was developed by the American climate scientist Charles David Keeling. And this curve basically describes about what is the concentration of carbon dioxide in air. So in 1960, the concentration of carbon dioxide, which was measured, was 315 parts per million. 1973 marks the first oil shock. 1974 is the first evidence of chlorine chemicals being involved in ozone depletion, and 1979 marks second oil shock. 1980 Keeling curve again showed that there was an increase in CO2 concentration from 315 to 337 parts per million. 1990 was the year when IPCC report noted pattern of past warming while signaling that future warming is likely. 1992, United Nations Conference in Rio de Janeiro creates the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. 1997, Kyoto Protocol came up, which was signed by many of the countries except for the US. And it was the US which was the largest emitter of greenhouse gases. 2000, in 2000, Keeling curve again depicted an increase in the CO2 concentration, and it was as high as 367 parts per million. In 2001, third IPCC report came up, which noted that warming resulting from greenhouse gas emission has become very likely. In 2005, Kyoto Protocol goes into effect. All major industrialized countries sign on except the US. And 2006, China becomes the world's largest GHG emitter. 2007, fourth IPCC report came up, and effects of global warming is occurring. That was what was shown in that year. And 2011, Canada withdraws from the Kyoto Protocol. 2013, Keeling curve was again measured, and CO2 concentration was found to be 400 parts per million, which was quite high from what was observed in 2000. It was 367 parts per million. 2015, Paris Agreement came up, which was signed by 200 countries, including the US, and it was kind of a replacement of the Kyoto Protocol. 2016, Paris Agreement goes into effect. So this is called as the timeline of climate change. There are very remarkable events which was shown and which actually detects that yes, climate is actually changing. Then in 2018, IPCC owned this estimate further, noting that human beings and human activities have been responsible for worldwide average temperature increase between 0.8 and 1.2 degrees C of global warming since pre-industrial times, and most of the warming observed over the second half of the 20th century could be attributed to human activities. It also predicted that the global mean surface temperature would increase between 3 and 4 degrees C by 2100 relative to the 1986 2005 average should carbon emission continue at their current rate. The predicted rise in temperature was based on a range of possible scenarios that accounted for future greenhouse emission and mitigation. This is to be noted here that climate change over a period of time, geological time, is natural, but anthropogenic activities have speeded up the process. Humans are increasingly influencing the climate and the Earth's temperature by burning fossil fuels, cutting down forests, and farming livestock. When we burn fossil fuel like coal and gas to create electricity or power our cars, we release CO2 pollution in the atmosphere. Then plants and trees play an important role in regulating the climate because they absorb carbon dioxide from the air and release oxygen back into it. Forest and bushland act as carbon sinks and are a valuable means of keeping global warming to 1.5 degrees C. But humans clear vast areas of vegetation around the world by farming, urbanization, infrastructure development to sell tree products such as timber and palm oil. When vegetation is removed or burnt, the stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, which contributes a lot to global warming. Up to one fifth of the global greenhouse gas pollution comes from deforestation and forest degradation. Agriculture and farming also contribute towards greenhouse gas emission. Animals, livestock like sheep and cattle produce methane, a greenhouse gas. When livestock grazed at a large scale, the amount of methane produced is a big contributor to global warming. Some fertilizers that farmers use also release nitrous oxide, which is another greenhouse gas. So this adds enormous amount of greenhouse gases to those naturally occurring in the atmosphere, increasing the greenhouse effect and causing global warming. Similarly, air coolers, power grids, oil refineries, wildfires, and volcanic eruptions that also causes greenhouse gas emission. So, the main driver of climate change is the greenhouse effect. Some gases in the Earth's atmosphere act a bit like the glass in a greenhouse, trapping the sun's heat and stopping it from leaking back into space and causing global warming. Many of the greenhouse gases occur naturally, but human activity is increasing the concentration of some of them in the atmosphere, in particular, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. Other greenhouse gases are emitted by human activity in smaller quantities. Methane is more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, but has a shorter atmospheric lifetime. Nitrous oxide, similar to carbon dioxide, is a long lived greenhouse gas that accumulates in the atmosphere over decades to centuries. Natural causes such as changes in solar radiation, volcanic activity also leads to greenhouse gas emission, but the amount or the concentration that it causes is not as high as it is because of anthropogenic activities. So, since 2011 to 2020 was the warmest decade recorded, with global coverage temperature reaching 1.1 degrees C above pre-industrial level in 2019. Human-induced global warming is presently increasing at a rate of zero point 0.2 degrees C per decade. An increase of 2 degrees C compared to the temperature in pre-industrial times is associated with serious negative impact onto the natural environment and human health and well-being, including a much higher risk that dangerous and possibly catastrophic changes in the global environment will occur. For this region, the international community has recognized the need to keep warming well below 2 degrees C and pursue efforts to limit it to 1.5 degrees C. Looking into the greenhouse effect, some incoming sunlight is reflected by Earth's atmosphere and surface, but most is absorbed by the surface, which is warmed. Infrared radiation is then emitted from the surface. Some infrared radiation escapes to space, but some is absorbed by the atmosphere's greenhouse gases, especially water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane. The re-radiated in all directions, some to space and some back toward the surface, where it further warms the surface and the lower atmosphere. We have seen already that a Keeling curve was developed by an American climate scientist, Charles David Keeling, which tracks changes in the concentration of carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere at a research station on Mauna Loa in Hawaii, USA. So, although these concentrations experience small seasonal fluctuations, the overall trend shows that CO2 is increasing in the atmosphere, and the other graph predicts the increase in concentration of carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere according to a series of climate change scenarios that assume different levels of economic development, population growth, and fossil fuel use. Many simulations of future climate change has been done in order to predict patterns of warming and other climatic factors. So if we see the simulations of future climate change in terms of patterns of warming, then we conclude that the greatest increase in near surface air temperature since the 1990s is occurring over the polar region of the northern hemisphere, largely because of the melting of sea ice and the associated reduction in surface albedo. Greater warming is predicted over land areas than over the ocean, largely due to the delayed warming of the oceans and their greater specific heat. The northern hemisphere, with less than 40% of its surface area covered by water, is expected to warm faster than the southern hemisphere. Similarly, the climate changes associated with global warming are also projected to lead to changes in precipitation patterns across the globe. Increased precipitation is predicted in the polar and subpolar regions, whereas decreased precipitation is projected for the middle latitude of both hemispheres, whereas precipitation near the equator is predicted to increase. It is thought that rainfall in the subtropics will increase. In the similar manner, ice is going to melt, sea level is going to rise, there will be change in the ocean circulation patterns, there will be change in the tropical cyclones. So, changes in precipitation patterns and all the changes that we just learned about are expected to increase the chances of both drought and flood conditions in many years. Decreased summer precipitation in North America, Europe, and Africa, combined with greater rates of evaporation due to warming surface temperatures is projected to lead to decreased soil moisture and drought in many regions. Furthermore, since anthropogenic climate change will likely lead to a more vigorous hydrologic cycle with greater rates of both evaporation as well as precipitation, there will be a greater probability for intense precipitation and flooding in many regions. Therefore, we conclude from this session that climate change and agriculture are internally correlated with each other in various aspects, as climate change causes variations in annual rainfall, average temperature, heat waves, modifications in biodiversity of weeds, pests, and microbes, global change of atmospheric carbon dioxide or ozone level, and fluctuations in sea level is the main cause of several stresses, which have adverse effects on the agriculture production.